Ready, set, go. Back in the can for another edition of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void. Once again, the magic of the internet bringing me an old friend. Tell me, who the fuck are you and what do you do?
Hey, my name's Chris Kleinhenz. Fly professionally for one of the larger cargo companies in the United States on the 747 now. Before that, flew some corporate for about 3 years, and then I was over at Company X in Dubai. Probably figure that one out. Did that for a while, and then flew RJs for 6 years, and flew some shitty little cargo airplanes for a company for a little bit, and flight instructed. So there's 17 years or something in 30 seconds.
That's a fair amount of time in the air, man. And a 747, fuck me, that's a big bird.
Yeah, she's a big girl.
Is that intimidating?
Nice. No, it's humbling when you walk up to it. You can't believe you fly the thing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? When you're a kid, you dream of flying something like that, and then when you're actually doing it, it's kind of surreal. And especially when you're in the airplane, the cockpit in the 747 is actually not that big. It's smaller than a 777. It's smaller than a 767. It's smaller than an MD-11 because of the slope of the cockpit and the way the nose is
Right.
with the cargo underneath it. So you bang your head more in a 747 cockpit than you do in a lot of these other ones. So you kind of you kind of forget what you're flying half the time until you walk up to it and you got to go up 3 flights of stairs.
Yeah, man. I mean, in another life, I worked ground for United Airlines and I had one opportunity to push back a 7-4 from the gates in Vegas. And it's the only airplane where in the tug, the nose, as you're facing the tail, is so far behind you that you got to turn around to see it.
Yeah.
It's you're pushing a fucking city block. And just doing that was terrifying and also super exciting as well. So I can't imagine what it must be like to get pushed back and start taxiing a fucking neighborhood around.
Yeah. It's very cool. It's beautiful airplane, flies well. Obviously, just obviously there's a little bit of the ego involved for any pilot, and if they say there's not, they're lying to you.
Sure.
But yeah, it is cool to fly a
Now,
747.
they don't build them anymore though, right?
No, they just stopped. I believe the last one just came off the assembly line maybe a month or two ago, and
Wow.
the last four of them went to Atlas, and then we took a couple of them before that. But yeah, they just stopped producing the Dash 8s. They're done.
Well, I mean, a lot of the fleet that are in the air these are not new aircraft. I mean, they've
No,
been
no.
these that was always the funniest thing. You talk to people that don't know anything about aviation and they think all these shiny jets are like brand new, came off the assembly line like 2 years ago. And they don't realize that half those jets were built before they were born.
Yeah, yeah. We got some from the 90s, and yeah, they got a little long in the tooth, a few of them, but
Yeah, but they do the trick, man.
they still do the job. And that's one thing about Boeing, especially with the 777 and the 74. They're like the big John Deere's of the sky. They're very reliable.
Yeah,
They're incredibly not as sophisticated or technologically evolved as you would think.
sure.
It's quite a basic airplane when you really get down to it,
Hmm.
which makes it somewhat easy to fly and very reliable. And that's
Nice.
that's kind of what they've been going after. So
Sure. Well, I mean, I preaching to the choir in regard to that. I mean, the Twin Otter obviously is my favorite airplane in the world, and she's a basic bitch. and
I wish I would have got to sit up there with you, man. I should
oh,
have gone for a fly with you because I've never flown a Twin Otter, and it's always been on the bucket list.
oh man, she's just such a great plane to fly. And I mean, hell, my favorite Twin Otter of all time to fly was built 2 years before I was born. And
Wow.
I'm not exactly a spring chicken anymore.
Yeah, they've been around for a bit, huh?
Yeah,
I
but they
think if
did
me
it
and you
right.
went if me and you went flying together, I don't know if we'd be here to be talking about this right now. We'd probably have
No,
different jobs, different
yeah, I do.
different path.
I don't think we would have bent it, but we sure would have bent our careers. So,
Like slight kink in the equation. Yeah.
So we're gonna back it way up and go way before you were flying airplanes. When did you start doing stupid shit, like extreme stuff? When did you decide that it wasn't all corporate?
Oh man. A psychologist asked me what my earliest childhood memory was a while back, and you're getting into those depths of
Nice.
the memory banks. Boy, just stupid and shit in general. I don't, there are certain people that are attracted to a career field like being a pilot or in skydiving and stuff like that. And obviously, we're wired slightly differently. And
Yep.
Man, I don't know, doing stupid shit as a kid. Yeah, like all the time. Hijacking construction equipment in the neighborhood that we live because my mom bought. I was just going into high school. I think I was like 13, 12, going on 13 or something like that. And I don't know, just going out, and there's all this construction equipment just left behind in the neighborhood because it's a new subdivision, and just figuring out ways to get those things running and take them on some joy rides around the thing. And I wouldn't say we were doing any like heavy earth moving or anything, but we had some fun. But
so it sounds to me like we had a similar path in that there one or two more left turns and I would have ended up in jail, not as a pilot.
Yeah, I had a little dirt bike when I was a kid, and obviously I don't think the neighbors or neighborhood were as big a fan of my dirt biking prowess as I was. So remember running from the police. I probably shouldn't say that, but I was a kid, but you hear the cops coming, of course you bail and run through the alley and the back roads, park the bike in the backyard, get it in the shed as fast as possible, get in the house and act like nothing happened, and hope they didn't know where it came from, but nothing serious. But I guess you're not supposed to have dirt bikes on the city roads or whatever. So
yeah, fair enough. I mean, hey, that's a bygone era, because that sounds almost quaint to me at this point.
I mean, I think for you growing up or me growing up, it was like you piss the parents off. They're like, go play in traffic, get out of the house.
Oh yeah, man.
Go climb a tree, get out of here, And,
absolutely. I mean, that was the biggest two words you'd ever hear were go outside.
Get out of my house.
Yeah, let's go. So
I'll pack you a peanut butter. What's that? I'll pack you a peanut butter jelly sandwich and don't come back until dinner. Get out of here.
Yeah, we'll come home when the street lights come on. That was it, man. So how did jumping enter your life?
Air Force Academy.
Really?
So, yeah. At some point, I guess I'll go back. It's kind of a cool story. So, I mean, based off what I've already told you, obviously, my parents split up at a fairly early age, got divorced. Dad bailed, moved down to Florida, and I was just not on the right path.
Sure.
So luckily my mom got me involved in a program called Partners, which is very similar to like Big Brothers, Big Sisters.
Okay. And
what they do is they hook up what they call as at-risk youth with like an adult father figure. So you have like a role model and, something like that, especially for a lot of like split families.
Sure.
So while I was waiting for that to be paired up, because they take their time, they put a lot of effort and research and due diligence in making sure that these kids get paired up with an adult that's going to be a good match.
Right.
Based off interests and goals and whatnot. So I was waiting to be paired up, and apparently my memory wasn't great at the time, but the director of this organization had won a flight like in a 172 as a white, not a white Christmas, but like an auction, a charity auction. And so she was like, which kid deserves it? Who's done something great recently with their life or is making progress? And I had somehow started to turn my grades and, start to get my shit straight a little bit. So I got a flight in this 172, and that was in Longmont, and just fell in love with flying. I was like, this was just unbelievable.
Sure.
So that was really cool. And then I started kind of dog sitting for this guy, taking care of his dog. He was a businessman, traveled. and he would just take me flying every now and again.
Mm,
And then one thing led to another, and came from, we didn't have much money in the family. And so if I was going to go to college, it was either going to be massive student loans, or I needed to get a scholarship or an appointment to an academy.
sure.
So grew up playing ice hockey in Colorado, and spent some time down at the academy down in Colorado Springs, and just loved it. And, this is when Top Gun was in full swing. And I think every kid wanted to be a fighter pilot. So,
Yep. Yep.
man, something just clicked, and I really just started to put things on the right path. And one thing led to another. Ended up getting an appointment to the Air Force Naval Academy. Decided to go to the Air Force Academy, and after your plebe year or freshman year, you get to choose basically soaring, gliding, or jumping.
Wow.
And I naturally was just, let's go jump, because they have one of the coolest programs in the world. I think it's still the only place where your first jump is a solo, unassisted free fall. You're not static. You're not tandem. You're not AFF. You are by yourself.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they do. It's fucking gnarly.
Yeah,
And
where's the logic in that?
Man, I just went back from my 20-year reunion, and we went down to the parachuting team facility, and it's just amazing what they do. The level of training, I mean, it's intense. They go through over a week of just ground school and emergency procedures and hanging harness. Like, it's taken very seriously, and they do a great job at it. And their safety record is fantastic. But I still remember seeing my videos, because they do ground to air video of all the jumps, and you get graded. And especially I ended up on the jump team eventually. And when you're sitting there grading some students, and it's just tumbling, and some people just don't click. They if that keeps up, obviously they get washed out of the program. But I mean, I've seen people's lines all over the place, and you just wonder, like, how are they under a fully functioning canopy right now? It's somebody's overlooking that thing that I'm just. But so that was my first jump. That was in 1999, and you get 5 jumps. You get 5 jumps in the program, and then you'll get the wings. They're like the same wings as the Army has on the airborne. There's no differentiation between the two. It's just a different program. And then at the end of that summer, you can come back and try out to compete to be on the skydiving team. And the primary goal of the Air Force Academy's parachuting team is character development and recruiting. And so we jump into the football games, we'll jump into air shows, demos, and stuff like that. So they look at your grades, your military performance. There has to be some personal recommendations. There's a physical fitness test, and then obviously an interview process. So made it onto that. And so your first semester as a sophomore, you go through AFF, and you'll spend the whole first semester, that fall semester, just learning how to become a real, like a skydiver. And then after that, your spring semester, you learn how to be a jump master and an instructor. And so at the end of it, that's called the Wings of Green. That's your sophomore year. Then you'll make it on to the Wings of Blue parachuting team. And that's what you'll spend your junior and senior year on. So then you'll choose, either you're going to be on the demo track, do the football games and other demos, parades or whatnot, or the competition track. I chose the competition side of things, because the secret, not really secret, but the competition guys gave up their Thanksgiving to train. And then Christmas, they gave up their Christmas break to go to collegiate nationals. And then both teams, demo and comp team, gave up spring break to train down in Gila Bend, Arizona. So basically you gave up almost all of your breaks to jump, but you ended up with a lot more jumps, obviously.
Sure.
And of course, as you know, to do the big demos, you have to have a pro rating.
Yep.
Well, to have a pro rating, you have to have 500 jumps. A lot of the demo guys wouldn't get the jump numbers to get the pro rating, so that guys ended up doing them anyway. So that was the first 4 years, and that was 3 years, and that was about, I don't know, 400 or 500 jumps.
Wow.
competing and stuff like that. So very blessed to be a part of that team, and great,
Sure.
great, great individuals, and obviously Uncle Sam paid for a lot of that, and just fantastic learning
Sure.
experience that kind of set a foundation for other things.
Well, I love that you said that one of the absolute goals of the team is recruitment. Man, if the military does nothing else right, they found a way in our lifetimes to make the cool factor off the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, they found these amazing ways to show off some of the highlights of the military to draw people in. I was, and I definitely use this word intentionally, I fell victim to the Top Gun era because I joined the Navy because of that fucking movie.
Oh
Actually, I
yeah.
joined the Navy because I was trying to get laid with a girl that really liked the movie. But it boiled down to the same thing. And the military does an incredible job with that because, I mean, let's
Yeah.
face it, a lot of the stuff that the military does is really fucking cool.
Yeah.
So, and
Absolutely.
jumping out of airplanes is one of them. So it's kind of
Yeah.
neat that they do it like that, but they also extend opportunities so guys like you can come up in the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I couldn't have done it without that. I mean, I didn't have the money, and I didn't know anything about it, and fate kind of fate and a little bit of hard work kind of brought me into it, and then
Sure.
it's been all downhill after that. But
Now, because it was with the academy, those were USPA sanctioned jumps.
oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and this
because I know military jumps don't count towards your AFF or anything like that. You basically have to do another version of it if you've only done military jumps. But yours being in college did count.
yeah, it's kind of goofy because you get the wings just like an airborne guy does doing static line out of a C-130. We
Mm,
never jumped with any equipment like rucksacks. We never jumped around. We were jumping sport parachuting equipment the whole time. I mean, my main rig was an old Talon 2 with a classic 259.
great rig.
This was the days of classic accuracy and style.
Yep.
So yeah, I got to wear those suits, and if I went back through it, I got a trunk of shit. I could probably find a photo wearing that thing. It's not sexy that much.
Those frap hats and oh
Crap
man.
hats and goggles and style suits and snot all over your goggles. Oh
Well,
man.
so you start jumping, you bang out 400 and something jumps. You end up qualified as an instructor. You're doing demos, you're doing competition stuff. What happens after the academy?
I went off down to Wichita Falls, Texas. I got commissioned and went to do civil engineering. I couldn't fly in the military, actually. My eyes kind of went bad through college. And towards the end, when they do your medical to assess whether or not you're pilot qualified, my eyes had gotten to a point where my astigmatism was outside of the standards.
Oh, that must have been a
So,
gut punch, dude.
little bit, little bit. And I kind of knew it going into the academy. I knew that I was already borderline,
Mm,
but they're doing their job too.
sure.
Trying to recruit. And they weren't lying, but it's all about the needs of the Air Force or the military at the time of
Sure.
when you're coming out of the pipeline. So one minute you could not be qualified. The next minute they need a lot of people, and they're handing out waivers and exception policies left and right. So I didn't want to give up that opportunity just because it wasn't a sure thing, because
Sure.
going to the Naval Academy is even worse because they just don't have many people going into the pilot track.
Right.
So their medical requirements are actually typically a little bit more stringent than the Air Force because we just produce so many more pilots.
Sure.
So yeah, it was, but I quickly realized that sitting at a desk doing engineering work and PowerPoint and meetings and politics and the office environment wasn't really for me.
Sure.
Especially when I could hear the airplanes and the pattern, because they do military pilot training down there in T-38s and T-37s at the time.
Right.
And I was just like, I can't, this isn't for me. So just started flying before and after work, 4:30, 5:30 in the morning. Ended up finishing my private pilot's license, I think when I was 21, 22 or something like that. And then I just went straight into it. I was very lucky that there was an organization down there that was led by some military instructor pilots that were reservists.
Hmm.
So they did that part-time, and then they did the civilian flying the other part of the time.
Nice.
So I got to learn from some highly qualified, high caliber individuals,
Sure.
and got the instrument rating. And then it was the standard effort of everybody trying to get that to that 250 hours. You're kind of just left there just going, shit, what do I do now? Like, I don't have the money to sit there and rent a 172 or a Cherokee for the next 180 hours to get up to the 250. But very fortunate, a contact who owned a small airport outside of town, very small airport. He's into airplanes, and he bought a little 1963 Cessna 150 for his son to build time in. And the airplane was just sitting around. And he was like, hey, man, if you want to come fly this 150, just put gas in it and, take care of it. And that's it. I don't need any money or anything like that. So I started flying that around, and then I kind of skipped a little bit. I did Civil Air Patrol when I was a kid to help me get into the academy. And I did a flight encampment out at McClellan and Solid when I was 17 or something. So that's, I rejoined Civil Air Patrol as an adult member. And you got to fly 182 and did like low level route surveys, trying to find antennas for the military. We did a little bit of the space shuttle, which was that? Was it Discovery? My brain exploded and big old debris field all over Texas. And
yeah, it was Discovery, I think.
Discovery. So we were out there looking for space shuttle parts, and it was just another way of building time.
Sure.
So between those two things, I ended up getting the 250 hours eventually, and then went and got my CFI II. And the guy who owned that little airplane goes, you want to teach in this? Same thing, just teach, maintain it, insure it, have fun. So came back with my ratings. And then he took me out to lunch, and he goes, why don't you buy the airplane? And I was like, how much is it? I had no idea what I was getting into. I was like, how much is this airplane? You always think airplanes are, expensive. And I got the airplane for $12,000. Now this was no Cherry 150. Okay.
Right.
She had some better days, but she did the trick.
Right.
It was reliable. And the guys who taught me, they taught a program for the military called IFT, Introductory Flight Training. So all the military pilots got their civilian private pilot's license before showing up into military training. He did that and decided he was going to go back into full-time status. So then, because he had trained me and knew me, and I guess believed in me, he started to feed me all these IFT guys. So next thing I knew, I was flying whatever the maximum was. I think it's 8 hours a day. Flight instructor. I was doing 8 hours a day with these highly motivated, very smart military guys, brand new lieutenants in the Air Force, guys around my age. And we just had a ball, man. Taught these guys how to fly a little 150. The Air Force, paid the bills on time. And that's how I got up to the time to be able to move into other professional flying. So,
well, I'll tell you what, too, the best thing about the military guys, and I wouldn't know pilot wise, but I definitely know jumper wise, is I used to love it as an instructor, an AFF instructor, when you'd have a guy come out that wanted to learn how to jump that was military. Because, above and beyond anything else, this guy's going to fucking do what you tell him to do. And it's amazing. Yeah. They listen, and they don't have to understand why they're doing it, as long as they've been told, and they'll fucking do it. And then they go, oh, that's why he told me to do this, or that's why he told me not to do that. It's amazing. So you see them coming through the door, and you're like, oh, this is going to be easy.
Yeah. It was easy work for the most part. It was fantastic. And if those dudes didn't do well with me and get their license, they didn't go to military pilot training.
Ooh.
They got washed out. And this was their full-time job, was to study the old Jepson book on how to be a private pilot. And so, these guys knew the books, left and right.
Yeah.
And they were highly motivated. And because it was their full-time job, they wanted to fly as much as they could and get it done. It was beautiful. Loved it.
Now,
So
where did jumping fit in during all of this?
it didn't. There was no. So this is one of the gaps in the old jumping career. So came out of the academy, and then I didn't do any. I don't think I did any in Texas. Maybe I went down to Spaceland like a handful of times, two or three times, but I fell out of the sport.
Hmm.
I mean, I had my rig. I never sold my rig. Um, so I fell out of it until I was married to another Air Force chick, and she was down at the same place I was down in Wichita Falls, Texas, with pilot training. She got A10s, and we moved out to Tucson.
She was flying A10s.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's a beast of a plane. I don't want to talk about it, but goddamn, that's a sexy plane.
yeah. No, it was fantastic, man. I got to see some. I got to see some of her HUD footage over in
Oh,
Iraq, which is a whole different story. And later on, the next assignment, she went out to North Carolina, and I got to go out onto the range with the TAC piece and watch her get called in and do some strafing. And it's badass. It's badass. There's no other sound like that Gatling gun
no,
going off.
no, man. I mean, I've
It's
only ever
still
seen fucking videos, and I get a semi every time I see it because it's just so badass.
it's the gnarliest, most ridiculous sound you'll ever hear, and it just
Oh,
makes the hair on the back of your neck just stand up, and it's just like don't want to be on the receiving end of that one.
no, man. I mean, it's a cannon with wings. That's it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But that was cool, man. So we went to Tucson, and then I started going up to Eloy and Marana.
Mm.
And so I was slowly getting back into it. Um, yeah, slowly getting back into it. And then, long story short, everything was pretty slow until we moved to Vegas. She got pulled out of the A10 and had to go fly Predator Reapers. So we went out to Creech. And while I was there, I mean, something pulled me back into the sport. I just go, I'm missing it. And like, what a waste to take all those jumps and not do something with it, you know?
Sure.
So a buddy owned Skydive Las Vegas. I didn't know him. He was well before my time, but he was on the same jump team in the Air Force.
Mm.
So he owned Skydive Las Vegas. And so I went and got my tandem rating.
Is this Brent?
Yep. Buckner. Yeah.
Such a small fucking world. Buckner and I
Yeah.
chuck drugs together at Skydive Las Vegas back when Michael Hawk still owned the place.
Oh, really?
I've
Nice.
I've
Nice.
known Buckner my entire time in the sport.
Nice.
Cheers to
No,
Brent.
yeah, cheers. He treated me very well, and went and did some drugs for him, and so that at least got me back in the sport because there wasn't much sports skydiving out in Vegas. I think you had to go up to Mesquite.
Mesquite
Mesquite.
or do the drive down to Paris Valley.
Yeah, yeah. So no, on my days off, I just go down there and go mountain biking with the boys in the morning because in the winter in Vegas, it's damn cold.
Yeah.
So we'd go do downhill mountain biking and then go throw drugs in the afternoon and drink beers after that. And it was a lovely combination.
Oh
So
yeah.
that was that's how I got back into it. And then then came the divorce and a couple other I changed, upgraded and went down to Houston. And then I went to Dubai. And
Nice. Well, that's where you and I
and
met.
yep.
Because
Yep.
I think the first time you and I met, you were wearing was it a blue wingsuit?
Oh, I don't know.
You
Maybe.
flying a wingsuit, having fun. I was chasing you out the door, and then of course found out that you were an American and a pilot as well. And I mean, then there's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of shit to talk about.
Yeah. Never forget your sleeve, man. That was like,
No,
oh, it's
man.
such good shit.
Were you so how did you balance that? I mean, because you were a full-time jet jock. You're flying for airlines out there and traveling all around the world. And but I would see you at the drop zone all the time. I mean, is it a tough balance trying to because I mean you fly a fair amount and there's a lot of jet lag involved. I don't know that I would have been the first one to head to the drop zone to get back on a plane.
Uh, well, when I first got over there, the schedules weren't bad.
Mm.
I mean, those were the good days. You know, you do a long flight to Australia or the States or down to Brazil or something like that. Do something up to Europe or Africa, and then maybe do one or two kind of shorter flights to Saudi or India or whatnot. And it really wasn't a bad schedule. You know, you had, I don't know, 13, 16 days off a month. So there was time to go. There was time to go play. You know, I remember we'd take off and go up to, you know, be with a girl I was dating or whatnot, and just go to the airport and find a destination up in Europe, go for 2 days and come back. We used to have the time for that. Later on, that all went away.
Sure.
And it became harder to balance that. But yeah, man, there were times me and my buddies, we'd come off a flight or whatever. Somebody would have the day off and the other one just landed at, you know, a lot of those flights land at 5 a.m. or whatnot. You go home, have a shower, have a good cup of coffee, and you just go to the drop zone and you're half cross-eyed.
Yeah.
You know, but if you, dude, we're so stoked on jumping at that time. Like I totally got reinvigorated on it. Like we mentioned, you know, all the A teams out there, Craig, Eliana, Fred, Vince, you know, everybody's out there. And it was just
Micah, Noah, all of them.
Mike, no, it was just like, you know, the heyday of skydiving, and you're just surrounded by these people, and it's like, you got to take advantage of it.
Oh yeah.
This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And got into the tunnel, you know, the tunnel was built. That thing was gorgeous, is gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know, now we got the other climb or whatever, which I haven't been in yet, but holy shit.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time I looked down at a load sheet flying in the desert and I saw Olaf Zipser's name on there, and I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. This is ridiculous. How many times would you be on a load with like the gold star names in skydiving just shooting the shit with you?
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll never forget one of the, I think it might have been the first Winterfest or something like that. And we're all around the bonfire out the desert. And you're literally like looking around and you're like, what in the exact fuck is going on here? You know, I mean, yeah, Olaf was out there, all the legends. And it's, man, if you've been in the sport long enough and you know who those people are, like you just want to surround yourself with them, you know, you want to tap into that. So it's like, you just got like this huge just shot of like skydiving stoke and skill by being around these people and getting into the tunnel and getting coaching with them. And like, I did, you know, quite a few jumps with Noah, you know, and it was just, can't do that today. I mean, you can, but I mean, the effort to go travel around and chase these guys around and everybody's in different places.
Oh yeah.
It was, oh man, getting canopy coaching from Nick all the time. You know, Nick was always coming out there and training people, and it's,
I remember going and getting coaching from Micah in the royal family's private wind tunnel. And halfway through it, it dawns on you where you're at, because you're looking out the wind tunnel and there's these beautiful tables and there's hors d'oeuvres on the tables and people sipping beverages and watching you fly. And there's Micah is teaching me how. And I'm like, this is the craziest fucking thing ever. Yeah, it was badass.
Yeah, I hit home with one of the best memories was took off and went up to Skydive Voss for the Voss Free Fly Fest. And man, I was just, you know, trying to learn how to free fly. I don't think I was flying head down at the time. And I went up there and I think I was jumping a Comp Velo 96. So slowly starting to work down in the old canopy progression. And you know, Mocktoon went up there. The whole team went up there.
Right.
And next thing I know, you know, sitting in one of the houses. Oh God, what's the Norwegian couple? They were world champions in free fly.
Too many names.
Yeah. Anna Mox.
Yeah, she's my boss. I write for her with the Edge agency.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm sitting in her house, and like they're sitting there planning like a canopy swoop down the mountain in Gudvagen or whatever it is, you know. And they're like, come. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, come on, follow us, just follow us.
Right.
So I just stayed right behind Kai Kai all the way down, man. They just guided me down in between the rocks and down that not gulch, whatever you want to call it, big V in the mountain,
Right.
just zigzagging back and forth. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like I get
Right.
to go play. I get to go play with these guys, you know.
Yeah, it's
And
amazing.
it's all because the Dubai connection and being around them,
Oh,
you
sure.
know.
Well, I remember watching Mike and Maktoum and the gang were starting to try and get real creative with their skydives because they had already just devastated the whole world with their tunnel skills and done the same thing in the air. And they were so fucking far ahead that they're like, all right, let's just do some weird shit. We'll jump out with a really long bungee cord and try and slingshot. And you're like, what? Popping smoke inside the airplane and jumping out with a bungee cord and yanking each other around the sky and shit because they were out of ideas. They're like, fuck,
Yeah,
it's time to get really creative, you know?
yeah,
And I'll never forget going up to Micah. I think probably a year or so before he passed away, and I was kind of getting the itch to want to learn how to fly a wingsuit. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, do you have opportunities or do you have time if you're ever out in the desert that maybe you could run me through a couple of wingsuit jumps? And Micah, being Micah, is like, dude, I got a fucking suit right here in the back. You can just grab that and we'll go. And I'm like, it's probably a freak, this
yeah,
massive fucking wing. And no, you'll be fine, man. You'll be fine. And I'm like, I'm good.
yeah,
But they had such talent that it was almost difficult for them to wrap their head around the fact that somebody might not be able to pull off the shit that they do on a daily basis because there was
yeah.
such talent there. But it was hilarious.
Dude, but Micah and his just send it personality, man. What a soul. I did a jump with him up in Norway, and like I said, it was me and like one other person, and can't really fly head down. Sit is something's happening there.
Right.
The three of us went out, and he just came over to me, grabbed me, and we went flying, man. And I'll never forget his his face. He puts his like helmet right there and his
Oh yeah.
glasses right in your face, and just that smile and that intensity,
Oh yeah.
man.
It's
They're
funny.
fun.
Obviously we've both been in the sport for quite a while, and having been in Dubai for as long as we both were, we've met a lot of people that aren't with us anymore. But every time I think, especially of guys like Micah, all I feel is privileged, right? To have even gotten a little piece of that, because fucking the energy and the skill and the guy was just this rolling rainbow of joy. He was happy
Yeah,
all the time. I don't think I ever saw him pissed off.
I don't think I did either.
No, I
Yeah,
mean, I'm sure he got pissed off, but I never fucking saw it. He was just a joy to be around.
yeah,
He was hilarious. Him
yep.
and Munting and Vince and all these amazing characters that
Oh,
came
yeah,
through there. That it's a bummer that they're not here anymore, but I'm so glad I
yeah.
got to meet them.
Yeah. It was an honor and a privilege.
So
Not to
how?
sound cliche, but it was
No, it absolutely was. Now, how long were you in the sandbox for total?
7 years.
All right, that's a long
Seven
stretch.
years. Yeah, it was a good run. I enjoyed it, and kind of sad to see the changes happen at the end with the teams kind of going away and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, business is business, and they're going to do what they're going to do.
Oh yeah, I
But
mean they sparked a shitload of amazing teams and a hell of a lot of talent both in the tunnel and the sky, but it wasn't a sustainable business model. They had no choice but to transition away from just sponsoring all the badass skydivers and trying to turn a dollar, doing tandems. And of course,
yeah.
the Palm is as iconic a tandem as you can get in the world. So.
What are they charging for a tandem these days? I heard
Uh,
it's even more insane.
yeah,
So it's like I think it's like up to almost like $1,000 US.
I think it's 3,000 dirham now,
3,000. Yeah.
3,100 dirham. So yeah, just shy of $1,000. But I
Yeah,
mean, hey,
they
you're paying for the location, right?
yeah, and they do a damn good job at what they do. I mean, we know the instructors are all good. The
Oh yeah.
the pilots were amazing.
I don't know what you're talking about. Those guys are okay. They're all right. They get by.
I
So
mean,
now,
their media, like their media production thing of what they do for those guys in the video, like it's
they took it. They took it
it's
next
probably the
level.
best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they took it next level. I mean, Skydive Dubai came on the scene for me when I started seeing the content that they were putting out, and then got a hold of Heath, the old chief pilot, who I'm sure you knew,
Yep.
and was blown away by what I was seeing, and was like, meanwhile, I'm working for this shitty little airline in the Caribbean, going, "What am I
Yeah.
doing with my life? I want to
Yeah.
go back to
Yeah.
flying jumpers." So now
Yeah.
you're in Colorado now.
Yep.
You dig
Yep.
yourself out of the snow?
Yeah, I did this. Yeah, I did yesterday. Whatnot. I don't know if you see all that out there.
Hey, there's a
Putting
whole lot of it. Well, now
putting a half out there. What's that?
you're big into winter sports too, though, yeah?
I like to ski. Yeah, skiing's my jam in the winter. So doing that.
Now,
It's
how's
been
the
good.
you've been on a bit of a break from skydiving, but you said before we got on the podcast you're looking for an opportunity to get back in the saddle.
Yeah. I've done a handful of tandems out here while I've been home to just kind of keep myself current, and whatnot. Unfortunately, I let that expire
Mm,
this last year, but I did some coaching. I got a buddy who's deaf,
mm,
and I did some coaching with him. So he did his AFF, and then I kind of got him up through his license and whatnot. And so we're having fun. I'm trying to convince him to get his ass in the tunnel.
nice.
I think that when you're that new, he's concerned about the jump numbers because he wants to get his different licenses or whatever. But I'm
Sure,
trying to tell him that, like, in the winter in Colorado, it's yeah, most of us, kind of take a little bit of a break from the sky because it's
for
just so
sure,
damn cold.
for sure.
So I like to do some stuff with him. It's where I like to go do some aerobatic training in the airplane.
That's what I
So
was going to talk to you about because you're a working professional pilot. You've been in the air working for 17 years. You got the itch to fly when you were a kid, and you'll finish your roster flying cargo in a 747 and then go get in another fucking plane, either to jump out of or to fly. You're kind of
yeah,
obsessed.
yeah. Some would say it's a problem. It's
I mean,
it's an addiction, but it's I don't know, man. I just like being in the air.
yeah. Well, I
You
mean,
know,
I'm looking at the little model jet over your shoulder in the video here. A couple of them.
yeah, there's a few of them up there.
I got the same thing. You're like a buddy of mine that flew in Cross Keys way back in the day, who owns a beautiful Stearman that Cross Keys used to own. He actually bought it from the drop zone, and when he's not flying the airlines, he's in that damn Stearman flying around, and just absolutely
Yeah,
can't get enough of it. But you recently started the aerobatic stuff, right?
yeah. I went to an air camp when I was maybe 15 or something like that, and 5 hours in a 152. And there's a UPS pilot on the airfield that gave away, I think, two rides to the kids, and he had a Great Lakes. It's a little two-place, fairly slow, fabric wing biplane,
Mm.
and I got to do a ride and him just do loop, a half cube in, a roll or two, and I was just like, that was cool. And so I've always had that itch. I honestly just never had the time or the financial resources or um, the availability to find an airplane wherever I was living. Because as you know, in like Dubai, the financial resources were okay to go do some small airplane flying, but there's just not much of it over there. There's
Sure.
no place to go learn aerobatics. So
No.
this was kind of always in the on the back burner. And then finally, I was just like, "Fuck it, go make this dream a reality." And
Mm.
so went up to Longmont, and there's a super decathlon. So I did a 10-hour checkout in that, getting the tail wheel skills up to snuff again, and learning some basic aerobatics up through the sportsman sequence. And then you're kind of, yeah, aerobatics is very unique. There's not many places, if any, where you can go rent a highly aerobatic airplane solo.
Right.
So the rest of the time, if you want to go rent a Pitts or a super decathlon, you can go in a super decathlon by yourself. But I don't know many places, if any, like I said, that will let you go up in a Pitts by yourself.
Mm.
The insurance is the issue.
Sure.
And those airplanes, they're spicy little meatballs, man. It's Yeah, some of the scariest. Like the flying's fantastic, but the landings are intense. You know what
I
I
bet.
mean?
I
And
bet.
so you're kind of left with you either stop or you go buy an airplane. And so I started a checkout in a Pitts S2C, and then another guy had an airplane called a Firebolt, which has a nice big IO 540 over 300 horsepower engine, three blade
Jesus.
prop, biplane, like a lot of fun to fly. It's a little bit of a bigger biplane. So it doesn't have quite like the roll rate of some of the other, like smaller pits and whatnot. So I ended up, one thing led to another, and I ended up buying this airplane and then finished my training getting checked out in that. And it was a long process because of our bitch friend COVID. He had COVID, I had COVID twice.
Oof.
He fell off a motorcycle, broke his hand. It's just, and it's a process. And when you're trying to get current and learn how to land these airplanes, you need that repetition.
Yeah.
And so it just took a while. That took almost kind of and the Colorado weather. So it took almost 2 years kind of getting comfortable in the airplane. And then last season did my first season competing, which was good. That's eye opening. It's a lot of fun. There's part of me that's like, why are you always drawn to this shit? And then I'm like, I don't know. Like at the time, I don't really like sometimes the nerves of competition skydiving or competition flying. You're just like, this is psychotic. This isn't a good feeling. Like, oh, I get to go I get to go take my 8th piss in 30 minutes
All
before I
right.
go fly this airplane. This is fantastic. You know what I mean? But when you're done,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
what a feeling, man. And I found that the competition aerobatics is very similar to that side of skydiving.
Mm,
It's the people, and because of just the stuff that we're attracted to, I find it to be a close knit group of folks,
sure.
and it just becomes a bonding experience. And there's a lot of volunteering, and
Mm.
basically, I view it as we just get to go fly airplanes in front of our friends and let our friends sit there and judge us and tell us how shitty we are at flying. That's what it really boils down to.
It's the same as skydiving.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been fun. My airplane's down for a little bit of maintenance after an annual. Found some stuff that we need to tidy up. And then I'm going to put mine on the market, and I've bought into a 50 share on a little Pitts S1S,
Mm.
which is a smaller airplane. It's got a smaller engine, but it's not half the weight, but almost.
Wow.
So it actually is a higher performing airplane, has a higher roll rate, and can take somebody up through intermediate level aerobatics. So
Wow.
you start in primary, which is what I did this year. Next season I'll do sportsman, and then see where that goes. And then you'll go into intermediate. After intermediate, I don't know if I'll go beyond intermediate because you're really taking it's a huge commitment to get into advanced or unlimited level
Mm.
aerobatics.
I bet.
The financial commitment to have that um, high performing machine that you need to compete at that level, the physical commitment
Oh yeah.
of the body and the training and the G's, and then the time. The
Sure.
time, I do fly quite a bit, and I'm based all the way up in Alaska, so I kind of get to spend a day getting to work and a day getting home, which
Mm.
eats the time away from home. But I just take it day by day, seeing
Sure.
seeing where the adventure takes me.
The G's and stuff pulled in the aerobatic stuff is always where I wondered how I would fare because I've ridden along on some very mellow aerobatic stuff, nothing hardcore. But I've definitely put myself in the corner in jump aircraft a couple of times where you start graying out a little bit and going, fuck, I wonder what I just did there. So I honestly, it was kind of funny because looking back as a kid, of course, the Top Gun era, you daydream about being a fighter pilot. Now as an old man, I'm like, no fucking way.
I think you would do better than you think. Um,
I've had people say that before is that they've done it wasn't as aggressive as they thought it was going to be. But of course, especially when you've been as a pilot as long as I have and never done any aerobatics, you build it up to be bigger than it probably is.
Yeah, and that the G tolerance comes fairly quick. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
once you get into it, like if you haven't flown in a couple of weeks or a month and you go out and go for a rip, like yeah, you'll feel it. But I mean, obviously the G straining techniques and whatnot, and then like you have a body that can handle aerobatics well. The
Sure.
tall, skinny guys that run a lot of marathons, it's not the best. But guys, it's more of a lifting and whatnot. They all joke about, smoke a pack of cigarettes, eat a cheeseburger a day, and lift a lot of weights, and you'll be a great aerobatic pilot. Nice. Because of the high blood pressure,
Sure.
But yeah, it's not too bad. And the other thing is, like, all the G's are very short term G's. It's not like flying a fighter jet that has that much thrust to have that high level G sustained for a period of time.
Yeah, so, you're not 30 seconds coming around the corner. It's more like 5.
I'd be stalling and spinning into the ground by then.
Right. I mean, it always looked like an absolute blast. It was just something that I never had the opportunity to do. I mean, flying jumpers was always pretty challenging anyway. And of course, I'll never admit to potentially being in more than the recommended bank angle in a PAC 750 or a Twin Otter. But if I had been there, it would have been a really cool experience.
Yeah. You were just practicing your steep turns.
That's it. Just slightly steeper than normal. I mean, actually,
60 degrees of bank. What were the rules? 60 degrees of bank, 15 degrees of pitch, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. It was kind of funny as some of the drop zones that I've gotten to have gone through higher end training, and you're doing a proper check ride, but it's a bunch of jump pilots doing the check rides. It's very easy to find yourself well past the recommended bank angle for steep turns, completely comfortable, trimmed out, not even touching the throttles, going, oh, we're not supposed to be at 60. This isn't a 60 degree. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of happens.
Sometimes it does,
Yeah. Well, shit. So potentially definitely continuing on with the aerobatic training, hopefully getting back in the air with skydiving. It doesn't sound like you're going to slow down anytime too soon.
No, hope not. The body feels like it's getting a little bit older, but the mind is still.
Oh, fuck off, man.
I'd say things are changing though. Like shoot, I had a second rig that was just for wingsuiting. That's being sold this week.
Yeah.
There's just not, at some point you have to be realistic with your goals.
Sure.
And the training and the discipline that goes into some of these disciplines within skydiving. And I was doing wingsuiting. I loved wingsuiting with my buddies around Dubai. There's just not as many people, here in Colorado. And I just don't have the time to keep up with that level of proficiency.
Sure.
To be doing any like wingsuit base jumping or anything like that.
Sure.
And I haven't jumped that rig since I moved home. So, I'm slowly starting to have to admit the fact that there's just not enough time, and you have to respect it, man, as you know.
Oh yeah.
And our buddies were at the absolute top of the sport, and she'll bite you in the ass.
Oh, absolutely.
And I have no business trying to keep up with all that.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I'm well into the upsizing phase of my skydiving career. Double digit canopies are in my past, and I'm fine with that. I have zero issue with that. And and I'm sure you'll agree, the biggest benefit to skydiving is it's a very small percentage of it is actually the jumps. It's the community that we get to be a part of. And I had a friend recently post on Facebook that due to considerations with family and children and stuff, he was gonna walk away from skydiving. And my immediate response was, you're a skydiver for life, even if you never jump again. I mean, we're always going to have this amazing community of people that we've got a very unique link to, because as you said at the beginning of the podcast, we operate on a slightly different wavelength.
Yeah.
It's just a little different. Now, as we get towards the end, I usually like to ask people what advice you have to people. But being as how the majority of our chat was more aviation based, if we've got any listeners that are young in the sport and young in aviation, and they're thinking about trying to take a similar path, what tips do you have for the budding pilot that's, maybe thinking about flying, or they're 100 hours in wondering if hitting that 250 mark is worth it?
Yeah, good question. My biggest thing would be just enjoy the journey and the process, and respect it.
Mm.
You know, in both in both aviation and skydiving, especially with our personalities and egos, we always want the next best thing. We want to fly the next bigger airplane. We want the multi-engine airplane. We want the turbine airplane. We want to get hired at the first airline. We want to fly a 747. And when you finally start to realize and achieve all these things, a lot of times you just want to go backwards and just go, I just want to go tinker around in a 152 and have nobody tell me what to do or where to fly, or you know what I mean? Like, just
Oh yeah,
enjoy that process. And the same thing with skydiving. The whole progression with downsizing canopies and whatnot. Enjoy the process. Take your time. Don't rush. You know what I
mm.
mean? Because before you know it, you'll be, our age looking back on it and just being like, what was the rush? Nobody cared what canopy I was flying or what you can do or what you can't do. But what does bite you in the ass later is the injuries or possibly the death or whatnot, and losing the friends. Just
Oh yeah,
that's my biggest thing, man. Just enjoy the journey, because
for
it's
sure.
one hell of an adventure, and it's beautiful, and you only get one shot at it. So
Yeah.
take take your time.
I completely agree. And it's looking back on the entire time in the sport, I'm glad that I went as slow as I did towards canopy stuff, and wasn't in a rush. And I found my own summit in that I decided very early on that the Twin Otter was my favorite fucking plane on the planet. And there's something to be said for having found that as early in my career as I did,
Yeah,
because I really got to enjoy the living hell out of it. And I've said
yeah.
it a million times on the podcast. Nobody was ever impressed with a single one of the swoops I ever did. They were never going to be impressed with any of
Yeah.
those. I was never a competition level skydiver. I was just a good tandem instructor, and I enjoyed jumping out of airplanes. And there was something to be said for just being happy, enjoying the ride.
That's it. And I guess on the personal relationship level, man, always just give those hugs, do those
Mm,
handshakes, do those handshakes. Tell your buddies you love them. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Don't don't hold those back, because someday those homies aren't gonna possibly be with you anymore.
sure.
And
Well,
just
and
wanted to,
that's a lesson that the young skydivers absolutely need to learn right off the bat. The folks that have been around a while know that loss is inherently a part of our sport. Even if it's not happening in skydiving, so many of our skydiving brothers and sisters are also base jumpers, which is pushing that next level. And somebody asked me years ago, when I had lost another friend, why I didn't just why don't you just leave that sport? You've had so many losses in your life. And I'm like, I'm going to continue to lose friends for the rest of my life, because I've been such a, this community has been such a huge part of my life.
yeah,
That's never going to stop. So I might as well keep on going and keep making these amazing friendships, because, man, I consider myself extremely lucky for having even been
yeah,
able to meet these people in the first place.
yeah. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
No, fuck no.
Yeah, it's not easy, and the more folks we lose, you kind of, I don't know, what was it, that one summer, like shit, like 3 or 4 years ago, man. Like, it was
Oh
just a
yeah.
gruesome summer up in the valley, and it was like literally every fucking day, like one or two guys were going in, and it was like, but that was starting to get tough, and it started to make you a little bit callous and just be like, fuck, I just got to get off social media.
Sure.
Like, I literally watched a dude go in live on Facebook. He's sitting there taking a video of himself, and puts it puts it in his zipper on his wingsuit, and he goes in, and you can hear the cowbells in the valley walking up to him to see what was going on, and it was just like, holy shit, guys, let's just slow it down a little bit on the social media and the YouTube and doing the next greatest thing that
Yep.
we're all killing each other off.
Yep.
It gets tough. Now, going back to what you said, I mean, I wouldn't trade it, because the memories and the friendships and the hugs and the connections with these people, it's not normal.
No. Well,
Not normal.
it's very much a foxhole kind of friendship, right? I mean, you have extremely close bonds extremely quickly, because inherently we all know what we're doing is dangerous, but it's also really fucking fun. And that's a bond that most people don't ever get to experience.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's happens in this, a little bit in the military, a little bit in the flying business. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I don't think you and I have talked face to face for 2.5 years. Actually, no, we saw each other in Dubai briefly, but otherwise haven't had a chance to sit down and shoot the shit for a few years. And 2 messages later, I've got you on the podcast. I mean, how cool is that? It's great to know. And you've got the same thing. There's not a country on the planet I don't have a sofa that I can go crash on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. We just pick up like we're just sitting in the airplane or sitting around the DZ shooting the shit, a couple of years ago. It's easy work.
It's the way it's supposed to be, man. Look, I thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit down and talk to me, man. This has been fantastic.
So, hey, man, it's I've never been on a podcast before, so I'm humbled and honored to be a part of it, man. Thanks for even thinking of me and inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, if I'm in Colorado, I'm looking you up. And if you're in Finland, you better come this way.
Absolutely, man.
Always. All right, brother. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.